Hey guys, we're here for another SEO questions and answers session. Thus far on my channel, I've been doing this repeatedly, but not with real regularity. So this video marks the beginning of what I hope will be a much more steady series to answer questions that you guys have. And in this case, I'm starting to scour the internet, Reddit, Quora, LinkedIn, things people ask me, things I notice people are asking elsewhere, etc. So I can answer good questions that I know you guys are wondering. And in this case, a question that has come up a lot that I think people could do a lot better than just give a simple yes or no answer is a .com better than other domain suffixes when we're talking SEO? Now there is some contention around this, although probably in the game of SEO, less contention about this than a lot of things. Most people in the SEO world professionally agree the answer is not really. But I want to give you more detail than that. And so, Google itself claims that it looks at pretty much all domains with equal weight. That has more or less been my experience. I've had .me's, .nets. Some people I've worked with have some of the other like .info, .biz. I have not generally found that it is more difficult to rank content on sites with some of those other domain suffixes than a .com. So the short answer there is it shouldn't. But there is a caveat that I think is important to talk about. Because you might be wondering, well, if there's not a difference, why is it that people predominantly want to get .coms? Why are .coms the domains that are occasionally the premium domain that places like GoDaddy wants to charge you $2,500 for instead of $13? Why does that only happen on .coms? And I think that actually skews a lot more toward how it registers with people than how it registers with Google. .com has become so prevalent that when somebody hears your brand, they naturally are thinking to put a .com at the end of it. And so, like when I tell somebody that my business is called The SE Optimist, you might naturally want to just type in theseoptimist.com. Now, in my case, I went with the .net, and I can speak from experience there to say you do have to correct people if you're going to go with one of those other domains. And financially speaking, there is a value to not having to do that, especially if you think that someday somebody might buy the .com and then there's going to be two versions of this site out there, and it's going to be complicated for you to make sure that when you're advertising yourself, people know to go to the right version of that site. Sometimes you're protected if you're an LLC and you've done some legit branding where it would be brand infringement for somebody else to use your name. Depending on how that works, consult with an attorney to make sure. So you might be protected from that. But also, some people view like .infos and some of those more obscure things as spammy. I think that's becoming less the case as we go forward because these different suffixes are becoming a lot more common than they used to be. But for some people, there still is this perception, if you have a different domain suffix, that they're kind of saying, what, you couldn't get the real .com, like you had to go with this thing? And then they're drawing some negative conclusions about your business just because you don't have the .com. And a lot of people in the SEO game's advice is, when people ask, well, what do I do if the .com that I really want is taken? Do I get a something else? Some people say yes. Other people have said, try to find a .com that is available then. Alter your name slightly. Come up with something along the same lines. Get a .com. There's something to that. The convenience, like I said, the way that it makes your site be seen. People also observe, well, if .com wasn't better, why are all the leading websites on the internet .coms? And I think that just plays back to the perceptual aspect of that for people. It's much easier to market, to do advertising, especially if you're doing TV ads, radio ads, stuff where people are hearing the name of your business and you're somewhat relying on them needing to be able to just manually type you in later. .com is much easier in that regard. Probably one of the trickiest alternate domains is .co because it's almost the same suffix just without the M, and you're going to constantly be in that scenario where people are going to want to type in the .com and then they're going to be hitting the wrong website, or maybe there isn't a .com, so they're going to get 404 errors and be like, I just heard an ad for this, why is nothing coming up? people are so afraid of ending up in that scenario, they will sometimes go to great lengths to be the .com. Bigger businesses that have the budget for it are often in positions where even if they have to start with a different domain suffix, as they get going as a brand, they will eventually pay big money to acquire the .com for that reason. But it's not to say that getting the .com innately, like in an apples to apples comparison where we're saying two sites with exactly the same page content, everything laid out, titled, etc., the same exact way, my experience has not been that if you did that kind of apples to apples comparison, that simply having a .com magically makes you rank better than being on something else. Not been my experience. And that's going to be up to you in the way that you plan to market your business. I think that you can get around a good degree of what we talked about if you're saying a lot of my marketing is going to be handouts and flyers and digital marketing where I'm just sharing posts on social media and things like that. I think it's a lot less of a problem then, because people don't really need to memorize your domain if they're clicking links that just takes them right there, or if they have a postcard or something else that literally says the domain on it, then it's a lot easier for somebody to just type the right thing. So certain types of marketing, if you have that in mind going forward, it's going to be less of a big deal what your domain suffix is. If you're relying on word of mouth, if you're doing a lot of networking, if you're doing a lot of TV or radio type ads where people are hearing your brand, it may matter a lot more to have the .com. And if you're in a very competitive niche where you feel like you need to be doing everything possible to put out a sense of legitimacy and authority, you may want to opt for the .com just to check that box of, in case any of your potential audience are people that believe .coms are more reputable than the other sites, then you don't want to have that working against you. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Catch us in the next video.